Hey guys, welcome back to another video in this channel. Today, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. We need to talk about AI generation or generated images. I've been wanting to postpone the talking of this point. I've mentioned it every now and then, and I've commented a little bit with some of you guys on the comments. But I want to just get more information about it. I never like to have an opinion on something I really don't know about. So I've been gathering again opinions, feedbacks, information about this thing, the AI generated thing, and um and this is my opinion. So this is an opinion video. This doesn't mean that it's the absolute truth or anything. This is just what I think and how I think AI art is going to be affecting us or benefiting us as artists in the next couple of years. So the first thing I need to explain is what is AI art, because I know a lot of you have been what's the word interested in this sort of stuff, and AI art is, I guess, something that was eventually going to be here, and it's just a way to generate images. In this case, so far it's only images, although there is an AI a 3D model generator out there as well. But it's a way to generate images in a fast way, right? So the way this works is it uses neural networks and programming and a lot of crazy stuff that I'm not well studied to explain. And it gathers reference from the internet, right? It gathers a lot of reference, a lot of images from contemporary artists, from old artists, like from the Renaissance and everything. It grabs as much information as it can. You feed this information into the software, and then it spits out something that looks interesting. I remember a couple of years ago, this is what we were able to generate, and everything was like eyes and really creepy looking. But the thing is, nowadays you can generate stuff like this, and when this started to gain a little bit of traction in the last couple of months, especially concept artists were freaking out. They were like, what the hell are we gonna do now that you can use a computer to generate this sort of stuff, right? So I'm gonna say, to start, it is a really comfortable tool. It is really, really easy to do. I literally, earlier today, I went online, I looked for a couple of options to record this video, and the one that I came with was a stable diffusion. So stable diffusion is one of the algorithms, or one of the let's say softwares that does this. And as you can see, it can create amazing looking pieces like this one right here. It's completely free. It does require a little bit of setup. There was I literally looked for a stable diffusion install, and I found this video by Royal Skies, and he mentions that there's another guy called Penguin something, and he explains the whole process for a Windows PC setup. It took me about 30 minutes to download everything, because there are some heavy files in here. It's about 8 gigabytes, I think, or 6 gigabytes, something like that, depending on all of the packages that you need to download and stuff. But I was able to set it up, and let me show you how this looks. There we go. So the cool thing about that setup that I just showed you, which you can of course look for and download yourself, is the fact that you run this locally. So you don't have to use the internet, or you don't have to use any server. You don't have to pay anything, and I find that really, really comfortable. I was doing a couple of tests. I literally just wrote here on the prompt, a green goblin with heavy armor. And by changing the batch count down here, I was able to modify the amount of options I'm getting. So these are the 4 options that we get. This is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one, this is the fourth one. So it's interesting to me, and I actually wanted to try this prompt, because this is one of the the first discussions we're gonna have. In order for you to generate something that looks good, you need to be very specific, and you need to fine tune what you're asking about, or what you're asking the computer to get you, right? Because when I typed in Green Goblin, some of you on your mind might have thought about the Green Goblin from Spider-Man, and I think the AI did as well. So that's why some of these guys are very humanoid looking, and it's not the the fantasy Goblin that I was thinking about, right? So you're gonna have to fine tune. And there was a friend of mine, an artist friend of mine, who wrote a really, really cool opinion on the AI art, and he says, when you're using AI to create concept art, you're not an artist, you're a manager. And I think personally, I do agree with that. I don't think you can call yourself an artist by knowing how to use a software. Because if I were to ask you, if I were to say, hey, I really like this design, could you do it, but in this way, with this changes and everything else, by modifying this, by painting over this, and you don't have the skill, then you're not really an artist. You're just someone who really knows how to use a tool. And don't get me wrong, I've done my research, so I know that in order to get really, really good results, you really need to finesse the prompt. You really need to finesse the parameters. Like, there's a lot of tweaking involved, which is it's perfect, right? Like, I completely agree that it's a skill that someone can have, and you could potentially be paid to do that. Like, if you are someone who's known for using AI art and you can create really accurate AI art of what the client is requiring, I mean, props to you. Really, congratulations. That's great. But the problem is, what's going to happen when you can't create, or you can't change, or you can't modify specifically what they're asking, right? That's where I think the artistry still needs to happen, still needs to be there in order to change things. So I'm gonna show you how this works. The way this works is you literally just like write down. So for instance, I'm gonna write a fantasy dwarf. Let's say red or blonde hair on top of a mountain. If you use the commas, at least from what I've gathered, you get like more specific results. I'm gonna add the fantasy like tab. I'm gonna add the concept art. You can even add like ArtStation, and you're gonna get like things looking like something that you would find in ArtStation. Right now, as you can see, I'm doing this very small, 512 by 512. Let's increase this. Let's go like 1024 at least. And I'm gonna write as well like full body. Let's see what we get. So I hit generate, and this is happening on my computer. It's not happening on the cloud. It's not happening anywhere else. Again, depending on the kind of computer you have, you might have a slower or a faster experience. As you can see, this is not that, it's not taking as long, right, as to generate. As soon as that finishes, we're gonna have 4 options of the prompt that I just gave. Are they gonna be good? I don't know. I don't think the prompt is as specific as it could be, but hopefully we'll get something that looks close to what we're looking for. So this is the general way of how AI works, the general way of how it like processes things and generates your results. The one thing that one of the main things, or one of the main discussion points, and I think it's a really, really dangerous, like a slippery slope for this type of art, is the fact that in the prompt you could actually add a specific elements or specific words that points you toward that specific artist. And the prompt that you get, the result that you get, is going to look very similar. What do I mean by this? Well, I have a friend, right? And he's actually talked about this these things in his stream. His name is Eduardo Dominguez. He's a concept artist. He's Fox. And if you take a look at his art, right, like his the way he draws, the way he paints, the way he creates images, he has a particular style. Like, you can definitely tell. Like, I can definitely see one of them is like, yeah, that's Ed's, right? So I could technically put his name on the prompt. I'm not gonna try it right now because I haven't really like finessed the way to get that to work, but I could technically put in the name and I could get a result that looks really similar to his style. So the ethical or moral questions about that is, well, I'm copying someone's style. It's not his work per se, but it really looks like him, right? So is it plagiarism? Is it not plagiarism? Because if we didn't have his art, if his art wasn't published on the internet, there would be no way for Stable Diffusion to access, reference, study, learn, and then create something. So at the end of the day, the people or the guys who are doing the work for Stable Diffusion to work are all of the artists out there on the world that are creating this elements and creating art so that the software can learn from that art. So let me know in the comments what you think about that specific topic, because is this art like original art, or is it based on someone else? So there we go. We have this one right here. It got female dwarfs, as you can see right here. Maybe when I added the blonde hair, it thought that it was a female dwarf. I was thinking about a male dwarf. I'm gonna say fantasy male dwarf, and let's hit generate again. So that's one of the first like things that I'm a little bit iffy about, like the fact that yes, this is it kind of feels to me like you're stealing from someone, right? Because let's imagine someone comes to me to our studio and says, hey, we want to produce like a series of paintings for an event that we're gonna have here in the city, and we saw this artist on the internet. His name is whatever, let's call him Super Pro Artist 2000, right? And we talked to him, but he's charging us $50,000 to do the whole commission. Could you do it for cheaper in a way that it looks like his stuff? And well, now with this stuff you can. It could be possible to feed the AI information about that specific artist and let him or let the AI create things that look really similar to his, right? Now, again, is that plagiarism? Is that copying? I think it kind of is. So we need to be very careful about that stuff, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of debates about this in the upcoming months. So there's the prompt now. So you can see we have multiple dwarfs. They are indeed on top of a mountain. But you can see that they're not great looking. Like, this one is probably the best looking one, but you can see the faces are looking a little bit weird. The proportions, even like this guy is on top of another guy, and things are just like mixed together. And that's because I haven't really refined the prompt. Now, technically, you could select one of these guys and then keep on refining. Like, if you want something and you find something, and then you work from there. Now, we've already talked a little bit about like what I think are the bad points about AI art. I think personally, again, this is my opinion, that you're not an artist. Like, I could never paint something like this. I don't know how to paint at this level, like digitally, not even like traditionally. So I can't say, or I don't think it would be like correct or morally right to say that I'm an artist when all I do is write a prompt, right? Because I can't replicate this on the real world. Now, if a client's just looking for this sort of stuff, and he wants me to do it, and he likes the result, and he's gonna pay, fine. But I'm not gonna call myself an artist. I might sell this. I might say, hey, you know what? Like, you want this frame or whatever? We use it. I mean, that's fine. But if you want something that's costume and done by someone who knows what he's doing, I'm not that guy. I can only use this sort of like tools, and you can too, right? Like, everyone can. That's the thing about this. It is this sort of thing that democratizes art. Like, it makes it so that everyone can experience what creating is like, because I know there are a lot of people that struggle with learning traditional art or traditional painting. So it is a great tool for someone. Anyone can just like write and create something with like, oh wow, I did this. Well, you prompted this, right? Like, I think you had the idea, and ideas are great, but it's not that you really painted it, right? Like, you generated it. Again, it's a gray area, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. I know this is going to be a hot debate. It's going to be a complicated topic. I know some people that are like super into it and they're like defending it. Like in Spanish we call it capa en espada, cape and sword. Like they're just like defending it. And then I know there's other people that are like completely against it. I do think, and I've always been like this in most of my opinions about 3D stuff and art stuff, we need to adapt, right? Like, it exists, so we can't ignore it. We can't just be purists and never use it. But at the same time, I do think we need to be very responsible and honest about how we use this. Now, how do we use it? Well, there is a way to create AI generated textures. So I've seen some stuff. I haven't really done this, but this is an important one. Like, let's say you want to do something like a rusted metal, right? And you live in a place where there's not a lot of rust. Maybe you live on a village and in the middle of the mountains, and there's not like factories or anything. Everything's made out of wood and stuff like that, or bricks. And you want like a very specific kind of like industrial look to your assets. Well, technically, you could generate a metal texture, and we can actually try it right here. Let's try rusted metal texture. So if we do that, let's see what we get. And the cool thing, one of the things that I do like about using this to generate like textures and patterns and stuff like that is, since they are like AI generated, it's very possible that no one else in the world has that specific texture or pattern. So that means that your stuff will look a little bit more unique if you use it within the tools that we know, such as Substance Paint or ZBrush and stuff like that, right? So again, that's why I mentioned that this kind of technologies are really interesting, because they allow us to explore things that were not available before. And they will keep improving. I mentioned earlier that I've seen already like a model, an algorithm that takes a concept piece and converts it into a 3D asset, which is scary, because then you say, well, does that mean that 3D artists are gonna like be out of jobs later? Well, not really, right? Because again, these things are good, but it's up to us as artists to use them in a way that they make more sense. So, for instance, this one right here, this looks great. I could definitely download this and use it to generate like noise and variation in my textures on Substance Painter, and it's gonna work just fine. I can definitely save this or send it, whatever. And again, it's a tool at the end of the day, I think, and that's how we should approach it, as a tool. Now I'm gonna show you one thing that I actually used AI for in the last couple of months for production, like for a business, or from a business perspective. You guys know that recently we released the Blender course, right? You guys remember the character. I always forget about the names. We always use really complicated names. But let me go here. So that one was called Complete Character Creation for Blender. I think it was called. So on the project files, I actually, when I was trying to come up with the idea of the gladiator, I do consider myself a really bad person visualizing things. I do think I'm good creating stories and like the narrative and stuff like that, but to picture them and see them in my head, it's a little bit tricky for me, to be honest. So I went on and I used a DALI, which is another of the AIs, and I just typed in stylized gladiator, and this is what I got. So as you can see, it looks horrible. I mean, from a concept perspective, it's just like a blurry image. But that's all I needed, because when I saw this, I was like, yes, that's what I want. I want a character with a helmet, a cross like guard right here, the little skirt, the sandals, and that's pretty much it. And you can see that from the prompt to the final character, things were quite different. Like, it's not exactly the same. This guy's a little bit fatter, mine is a lot like stronger. We went for this sort of like Disney Infinity style of character, but the again, like the core of the idea was already there. And there were a lot of other prompts down here. You can see them, all of the prompts that this thing generated, which again, it's a good idea. But I do think this, like a sort of like a creativity sparking thing, it's a really good good effect. So for instance, let's say I want to do like a goblin again. So I'm gonna say a goblin. Let's go gray skin. Let's do portrait, concept art, realistic, art station, fantasy, and let's hit generate and see what we see. Because if I want to do a goblin in ZBrush, yes, I could just like open ZBrush and start like sculpting and try to find something that looks cool. I could definitely go into Google and look for a goblin gray skin, for instance, and I'm gonna find like certain goblins that look interesting, but I might not find like the exact thing that I want, right? Like in my mind, I'm seeing something, maybe something like this, or maybe something like this, right? And I've mentioned this before. I'm not an illustrator. I don't have the time to spend like 2 or 3 hours spending on drawing this until we find something that I like. So if I can use, in this case, Stable Diffusion to give me 5 ideas, 5 things to kickstart my creativity process, I think that's a good tool. Because everyone hates being in front of a blank canvas and not knowing what to do. I do think being able to kickstart that process really quickly, it's great. Look at this. Look at this. This is great, man. Like, I take a look at this goblin. That's very interesting form on the face. This guy's right here, very interesting form. They look a little bit like the guy from like the White Goblin, or like Orc from Lord of the Rings. But they do look like concept. Like, this guy right here looks really interesting. This guy right here, like this guy right here, looks really interesting. You have all of them in the same page. So I can save this image right here and use it as an inspiration again to kickstart my creative process. I'm still gonna have to do it in ZBrush. I'm still gonna have to sculpt, but at least I get something. Now, some of you, and maybe some of you might identify the style that, like in this case, Stable Diffusion is grabbing this from. I can't pinpoint an exact artist, but I'm sure there's someone that paints in a very similar fashion. Would that be like a copyright thing? Is that like morally wrong to be inspired by an artist? I don't think so, but it's a very thin and gray area. It's a very thin line. So this is it, guys. This is Stable Diffusion. This is the world of AI. Like, as time progresses, there's gonna be more AI tools that we're gonna be using. We've used some on the tutorials already. We have the AI denoiser that saves the render time tremendously. We have AI generated textures, AI like increasing, so you could render a frame at 1K or 2K and then just explode it to 4K, and you're not really gonna lose a lot of resolution. Eventually we're gonna have AI assisted animation. There's already a couple of things that do that thing. AI assisted rigging. So I don't think it's the right option to go against that. I think our responsibility as artists is to use those tools honestly and responsibly, right? Like, not cutting out any other artist. And finally, this is the final thing I want to mention, which is very important, and I still think it's my go-to response whenever a student comes and says, "Hey, why do I need to learn 3D if I could just go to like Polyhaven, right?" or CG squid or whatever, and get the textures and get the models and get everything from for free, right? Like if I am gonna like this is very easy. Like let's say a cafeteria, right? So bread or pastries, 3D models, right? Like if a cafeteria wants to do a commercial, why do I need to what's the word, to learn 3D if I can just go here to TurboSquid and download all of these breads, all of this like foods, get them in a scene inside of a blender and just render the composition. Well, you're totally right. You could totally do that. Like it's not out of the questions that you can do that. But what's gonna happen when it's not just a normal cafeteria that wants just like normal types of breads? What if, for instance, here in the in our region, someone created something called a dino quesadilla, which is a quesadilla in the shape of a dinosaur. Quesadilla is this corn like flour tortilla with a cheese inside. So yeah, you might find a quesadilla model on the internet, but I really, really, really doubt that you're gonna be able to find this exact like Dino quesadilla thing. So if this restaurant, which is local here, they could very easily come to us and say, hey, we want to do a commercial, a 3D commercial where the Dino quesadillas are like animated and stuff. You're gonna have to know how to model, how to texture, how to render all of these things because the models are not gonna be available for you. If you're just gonna be a like I would say like a generic production house that you're just gonna do generic stuff and things that you can definitely find out there, go for it. It's fine. But when the good clients come and they ask for very specific things, those are the things that you're not gonna be able to replicate. You don't see Disney buying their alien models from TurboSquid, right? You don't see Pixar creating their characters using Character Creator. Everything like those kind of things, they need to be like precisely made by professional artists, and that's where we come in. That's where the AI won't be able to get us there. Again, check out if you speak Spanish. Check out my good friend's Ed Fox live stream. He does he talks about this, and he did something like similar in the last couple of days. He took a prompt. I think it was this one right here. He took a prompt from Stable Diffusion or some sort of element, and then he paint over it, right? Like he polished it, and I think that's gonna be a really strong process for a lot of concept artists. They're gonna be able to again kickstart the creativity, get some props, get something here, and then get it into the element. One thing that I need to try, especially I'm thinking about using this for my D&D games, but Stable Diffusion has this very cool thing where you can actually like draw something yourself, like very roughly, like a draw sketch, and then like there we go, like stuff like this. You can give it a prompt, like you can go into Paint, draw something that looks really really weird, and then throw this into the AI, and they will use your stuff to kind of like figure out. Nvidia also has something like this, and again, I do find that this thing is quite strong. Like look at this, you draw this and then you just create the concept piece right here. This is what I would hand to a professional concept artist and be like, hey, I love this vision, I love this thing, can you make it better, right? Like can you improve it so that it works? Okay. What else? I think that's pretty much it. I think I've said pretty much everything I wanted to say. I guess the last thing I would like to mention about like Stable Diffusion and things like that are is the fact that most of this is not ready for like a 3D artist. You still need to do a lot of interpretation. So let's look for a Spartan helmet. Let's try sci-fi. Let's try fantasy. And let's try concept art. What do I mean by this? Well, you are definitely going to get something that looks interesting, but if you try to like make this thing work in 3D, some things just don't make sense, right? Because again, the AI doesn't know what's wrong or what's right. There's going to need to be a curation process throughout the whole element so that we get something that actually is functional for the workflow, for the pipeline that we're going to be going through. So you can't just like say, hey, yeah, this is the bad guy, and just send it to a 3D artist. He's going to be like, wait, I don't understand how all of these things connect. Like, how do you want me to fix this? And he's going to have to figure certain things out in order to make it work. Okay. So, yeah, I think, again, I'm already like hearing the comments. Usually when I release this type of opinion videos, there's always like a lot of opinions. And I love hearing that discussion. So just please keep it civil. Again, we're all here to learn. We're all here to improve. Yeah, look at this. So very cool, interesting shapes, very cool, interesting elements. None of this is functional, right? Like I can definitely take a look at like this guy right here. I really like the way like this like sharp thing goes and like the cut that we have there. So we can use that as an inspiration. I know that if I polish this, I could get like a really, really, really good result. I don't have the skills right now to do that, or the information, the training to like set all of these things. Um, but then at the end of the day, you're still gonna have to take that concept piece and convert it or make it into a product that you can sell. And that's where artists are gonna be really, really important. So that's it, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole debate, this whole elements, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye bye.